Hello again. We're going to pick up in Blender 3D Paint again on another topic, just extending into the same workflow that I was working on in the previous three chapters. This one is on using the brush stencil and mask when you're texture painting. And in that, what I want to do is show you how to go about setting up something to use as a stencil, and also using another image, or actually in the case I'm going to do is setting up a procedural texture to act as a mask on the stencil brush to paint something in 3D here. Also, I'm going to show you about duplicating layers for effect. I've actually set this up already, so I'm going to show you what the effect comes out to be with the layers, and just turn them on and explain how I set them up from last time to keep it a little shorter. Okay, let me go ahead and get right into it. Here we have this object again, and here we have an actual extra overlay. Before, we had this result, which was not bad, and it we had stenciled out to show the material underneath, and we painted the other texture on to show some sort of metal texture under the paint here. But what I did was I made a copy of the stencil and put it above, and then I painted on it to reveal underneath, and set it up with a color overlay. Now the color overlay is this white texture, and I'm going to paint onto it. We can also turn on our vertex dirt and ambient occlusion, which at this point doesn't really make too much of a difference in view, but it'll happen later when we're working with cycles. What I wanted to show you is how to make brushes to work with in texture paint. Here I've got everything turned on. I'm going to just work with the decking for now, so go back to edit mode, A to deselect, and as we did before, I'm going to find the vert group for just the decking, select that, and go back to texture paint, and like I said before, with this icon here for face masking, you'll see the highlighted selection area on just the plating, and that should enable us to paint on the color overlay. Now, it has to be active here in the Google Summer of Code has the paint layers here, but we also have the texture layers here. This needs to be highlighted in order to be able to paint on it. And if I just use my normal brush and paint, unfortunately I'm not seeing my color overlay. Let me make sure I've got this set to, oh yes, the reason is because I forgot. I'm only painting here. Now I just painted here in the center, but underneath my geometry is the place in the center where my paint went. So points for the UV map and the masking, no points for Craig. Okay, so if I was going to test paint an area, I'd test paint here, make sure I can paint. Okay, good deal. Now, because the color for the overlay is white, it doesn't look that good, because you can't see the secondary layer of stencil. But what I want to do is show you how to go about making something for a tile to use as a stencil or a straight image. And so I've prepared another blend file. This is the file I use to make my other objects for my tileable textures. And so you see where I've been making my objects. Now this, if you go into edit mode, you see in isolate mode, it's just the one plane, but it was about finding the actual the correct place in camera to make sure it touched in the right places to be even here and here. That way when I rendered it, it would be tileable. So just to show you, here's my camera selected. Well, if I can get it. Okay, I was in isolate mode. here in the camera, I have it orthographic, and I have an orthographic scale of 5.516, and that is not really that important because you can change things to be the way you want. But the important part is if you use a file to keep making the same kind of relationships, you'll want to keep that scale the same so that you don't change anything in relation to the scale. What I mean is, now if I want to make a change here to this mesh, if I make a change here, it will be it'll be similar. I have half a chance to stay with a tileable texture. But if I change my camera as well, then I have to refigure everything as far as relationships go. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just press F12 in my image editor, and I've already have this set to repeat. So I'll turn off repeat so you can see this is what the image looks like, and it's very clean, and I've already used it like this, but I want to show you how to maybe make it a little bit better. So I'm going to go into the I'm going to save this image where I can come back to it. Give it a unique name. New stencil test PNG. Okay, I saved it. I have it set at the camera set at 1024 by 1024. That's what I got. But what I want to do now is actually go to maybe view to paint, and I have to open up the image that I just created, because unfortunately you can't just paint on a render you directly. You have to go back to where you saved it. I should have made a shortcut here, but I forgot to. New stencil test. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to take solid black and I want to paint in some changes here. The curve, I'm going to use a harsh curve. I don't want any soft edges right here. I want a hard edge, kind of like what we did with the paint. And I want to I need to give my strength 100%. And we're going to just paint in some. Main thing I want to do is make sure that I don't do anything here at this contact point, here, or anything that goes over. But I do want to turn on, let's see here, wrap is already on. Wrap will enable it to come up both sides, so if I were to go over the edge here somehow, it would come over the edge here. But for right now, I just want to dirty this up a little bit intentionally. And to make sure it's going to look okay, what I'll do with this is I'll go back to repeat and make sure that it looks okay there. I don't know, I could probably be getting a little too detailed with it at this point. But I wanted to show you what happened when you painted in and wanted to work with the tileable. I'm going to save this now. I'm going to turn that back off. F3, I'm going to save it as a +1, so I keep the original and that one. Okay. And now what I want to do is create a brush just for using that texture. So I'm going to choose my text draw, and this I'm going to change to, well, you know what, I'll go ahead and leave it the way it was, red. I'm going to, I already have a texture loaded there, but I'm going to get rid of that one. And then there's a texture mask that's not assigned yet. To work with these, we need to click here to open up the brushes, and you have option brush and a brush mask. So the first one I'll set up is the brush. Hit new, and it already looks for the image, so I'm going to open up the image that we just made, and I'm going for the changed one, that iteration. Okay, and what I'm going to do is tell it to calculate alpha, because I want it to tell it wherever the black is to pretend that it's an alpha channel. Okay, and that is going to be stenciled so that I can rotate it however I need to. Okay, and if you come over to the view, you'll already see I have this floating image, and I turn the alpha up so you can see what we're dealing with. Now you can see how it is, and you can see that it's separate from the zoom position of my model. So zooming in, I might be just fine, but zooming out, it's too big. So we'll see. But I also want to add another texture, because I didn't cut out very much here. I still want to have a little bit of round blocks and cuts and stuff out of it, but I want it to be a little bit more irregular instead of being something obviously that I did by hand. So I'm going to go here. Okay, first I want to make sure I call that my warning underscore lines, and this brush I'm going to name it warning lines dirty. It'll be saved with the file so that I can actually append it into other files. Pretty cool. Okay, so now I need to go to the mask that I want to use. This time I'm going to add a new texture, but instead of an image or movie, I'm going to get clouds. And if you come here to the texture mask panel, right now it's not visible, but if I click this icon, this eye, you'll see how it overlaps. And let me bring it up. You can see how it would cut in. What I want to do is turn on the ramp, and then bring in the white. Oops. Unfortunately, I drug it all the way over by mistake. Okay, so there you can now see how it's going to be broken, but now I need to change the size. Let's make it a little larger. And I might try some other noise values to see what you get. and that's pretty close to what I had in mind. Let me see if I can get a little bit more. There you go. Maybe that. Okay, so that in itself is pretty good for the overlay. So now that I've got this red color and I've got it set up, for now I'm going to turn off the visual for the mask. But the warning lines I've got. Now I'm going to go to the top view because I'm painting onto the metal here on the decking. And what I need to do is use the right mouse button to move the stencil. Control is for rotate. And what I can do is believe that I can just type in 90, and there, that's not quite. I don't think it feels like, well, yes it is. It's the odd offset that's throwing my brain. But shift right mouse button will scale it, and then I can paint where I want. So then, oops, I don't think I turned my value. Oh no, I did. That's the only thing, is the white area of the alpha is blocking me. So there is something you need to know about. If you click this, it will get rid of that when you're stroking, so you can see the paint come out. See? But then it highlights back again. So we can come up and we can put this down again, and we can continue up the side here. I may not be as accurate as I wished I could have been. Maybe I can fake it after I do the rest. The good thing is that since I'm painting on the color layer, that's the overlay, that's being cut by a stencil from underneath to the other one, that we're getting the effect of it having already been on and scraped away 2 different times. See, my stencil's not going to fall there. And see, that says it basically. I'll put a little bit right there just so that. And now we have something like that. So if I were to render now, now we have this red stripe warning label that's on top, and it's pretty cool. Now I do need to paint some dirt and grime on this layer, but what I want to do is paint some scratching and stuff on this layer that goes along with the bump. Okay, I've gone and painted some more area, and you'll see that I've actually used something to make the dirt. Let me show you the brush. I used my grunge texture and set it to calculate alpha. It's here, the one I used for the steel. And then I used a, let me see here, for the mask texture I used a Musgrave and set it pretty high so that if I were to show you here, you could see like that. So that was what was cutting out of the grunge. So I've painted it, and it could be improved, but I wanted to take the opportunity to show you something that you can do while you're in the process of doing this. Say that I am currently in the view menu of my 2D editor, and I want to affect this part of my image, not the rest of it, but just this part. I can mask it out and add in a mask here. Now I have to select the first and last and Alt-C to close. I'm going to select all of the verts, hit V to bring up the vector, the alignment, and change it to vector so it turns into a square. And I'm going to change that mask name down here to control underscore shadow. I want to try and make use a shadow filter on it. So now that I've got it there, I'm going to go into object mode for now. So all we see is just the mask we've made over here in the corner. And we're still working on the color overlay. Now in the compositor, you'll see here, I'm going to go full on view. Right now render layer runs the composite. I need to disconnect this, and my viewer, I want to connect to this image node. Now I've already loaded up the color overlay here, the same image that we were working on, and hook it up to the viewer, and now I see it in my back viewport. V key makes it smaller, Alt V makes it zoom in, Alt middle mouse button will move it around, and just middle mouse button will move your nodes around. Those are something you need to know about. Okay, so our mask is around this colored area in that other viewport. What I want to do is add a filter to the image. So Shift A, add filter, filter, and you'll see it update. It'll soften everything out. But what I want to do is I want to use a shadow. Now unfortunately this is too much, but because I don't want it to affect everything else on the sides, just on the decking. So Shift A to add a input mask. This mask node will help us control that area based on the mask we made. I called it control shadow, so that's the one I want to pick. We have it turned on a feather, and if we plug it straight into the factor, you'll see that the sides around the image are not affected, except for there's a little bit of a overspill. So I need to go to my mask, select all of it, Alt S, and scale in the feathering. Actually, I may need to just scale it all in. Until I've got it to where, okay, that's pretty clean for the most part. Now I don't want to be stuck with one level, so what we can do now is to actually disconnect this, Shift A, add a converter math node, and set it to multiply. I'm going to put a value of 1. I'm going to run my mask into the top value, and then run this into the factor. So with a value of 1, it's not too strong. Take it down a little bit. And I can get to where I want it to be. Now I want to show you something that's interesting. If I use a value greater of 1 to like maybe 5, you see the direction of the shadow is this direction, upward. If I use a negative value, the shadow is on the bottom side. So this might be something you might think about for maybe the use of drop shadow or such. Anyway, I'm going to go to 0.2, my value, no, a little bit more. Okay, so I've got it to 0.5. That seems pretty good. Now, this isn't going to go to the render, and I can actually still hook up my render to my image composite. It's not going to hurt, because right now the viewer is what we have in the backdrop. And what I need to do is go here and change from the color overlay to viewer node. And this viewer node, I'm going to go to view mode. Now it has the loaded finished texture there, so I'm going to save it as color overlay shadowed. Save that. I changed the name of the image so that we don't mess up the other image I was working with. Okay, now with color overlay selected on the layer on the object, I go to the image source, open that up, and I will choose the shadowed one instead. And so now you can see the difference here. There's a fake shadow on the texture, and that's pretty useful for game objects where you're not worried about making normal maps. And it also does help a little bit for the density of the dirt, but I thought that was useful for maybe possibly using it for recoloring just a portion. We can do that like the other video I have, where you make a mask around a portion of your image and just apply colors and changes just to that portion, and then save it and load it. And I think that's it for right now. The next video will cover working with cycle shaders. Thank you very much. Bye.